How many? I was last at Cinda. It turned out to be 3.5 years ago, not 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, I looked at it.
Yeah. How many of you were here last time I was here? Any of you? No, a few of you. Okay, great. Am I alive here? Oh, good. So, Joaquin gave me a great introduction. You don't need to hear more about me. My marketing guy made me put this slide in, so it wouldn't have been there otherwise. Last time I was here, I spoke in terms of Google, and the metaphor for Google was the bus. And you had to make a decision whether you were going to stand on the side of the road and watch the bus, whether you're going to get on it, but the one place you didn't want to be was in front of it, right? And as a bus, a tremendous amount of momentum and strength and power, and that was the metaphor I used. I was asked to provide 3 things for you today. One is sort of filling in the critical developments at Google for the past 3.5 years, looking at the rapid pace of development for the last 7 or 8 months, and then tactically assessing those to try to figure out how you might interact with them or not. So let me kick right off. One of the biggest changes was the creation of Alphabet. Splitting Google off from the rest of the crazy projects they had really freed local to be local. It allowed Google to focus on their core assets and money-making capabilities, which is AdWords, search, YouTube, and local, and provided corporate sort of focus on those four things. They trimmed a bunch of fat. They got rid of a couple of VPs in local. They're down to 1. They used to have 3 VPs in local. They put in place, as David mentioned, Ruth Porat, who's a very rigorous CFO for great accounting. So they actually got serious. I mean, they put adults in charge. I found it fascinating that the Alphabet logo actually included children's play blocks. It was a very apt description of what went on at Google prior to this moment. I mean, things like satellites that used to be encumbering local either got sold, or balloons got moved over to X, leaving local to do local. During this period, a lot of thinning of local products. I mean, we saw many, many products go, the compare products in insurance and mortgage, the coupon products for enterprise, the coupon products for small businesses, Mapmaker, axed, Panoramio, the greatest local image product ever, axed, right? So they spent a lot of time pruning off excess product. And then, from 2011, 2012, there was this forced march from local into Google Plus, during which they did basically no small business development. And then the local, Google Plus became a weight around their necks. The folks in local were confronted with a choice. I actually spoke to them about this. They were told by the executives that either they could accept Google Plus as their responsibility or totally reject it. They rejected it whole cloth, and which then started, after 2 years of tight integration, this incredibly complicated process of removing itself from Google Plus, right? All of the tight bonds that have been created, and it took them literally 2 years to do this. One of the amazing things about Google in local is they've had this branding problem since day one. Google Local, Google Maps, Google Local Business Center, Google Places for Business, Google Plus Local, Google Plus Local Places for Business. Anyways, in 2014, 2015, after the pruning, after the refocusing, they essentially came up with 2 brands. A forward-facing brand, Google Maps, and a business-facing brand called My Business. And they have stabilized around those 2 brands. Not brilliant branding, but a whole lot better than diffuse, indescribable, complicated, and non-understandable branding. During this period, they also ripped out, not only did they rip out the whole guts of local and the way it worked, but they ripped out, by this point, the business center had become totally outdated, right? It had been in place for 6 or 8 years, I don't know, and they tore out the guts of the business center and built all new platform that was extensible, expandable, easy to layer new products into, and they integrated the various views from bulk to small business into a single unified view of this business data, which was a huge undertaking because these like bulk and small business use different, for example, pipelines into their databases. So not only did they have to rewrite the interfaces, they had to rewrite all of the code that moved data from this point into their databases. And then what I think from an enterprise point of view is the most significant development, and David and I wrote about it in Street Fight yesterday, was their commitment to a forward-facing API for enterprise. Prior to this, Google Local was only functioning as a standalone product for business and a broken product with bulk uploads for enterprise. It really didn't work for enterprise at all. Not only did they release an API, but they've updated it regularly. It first came out in October 2015, version 1. Version 2 was brought out in December 2015. Version 3 was brought out in early 2016, version 3.1, 3.2, and version 4 was released last week. This shows tremendous commitment on a development level to enterprise, which we've never seen from Google before. Now, Google being Google, they're not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. They're doing this because they want the consumers to come to their site with great data and stay at their site. So sort of the phrase in the United States is Google as the presentation layer. The layer of the stack where not only is all of the content, Google has a desire for all of the content to reside there, they have a desire for the user to stay there and transact there. They don't want the user to ever go back to the website. So all the way from research to consideration down to conversion, they want all of that to happen at Google. If they can't get you to click on an ad, they're going to get you to click to call or driving directions. If they can't get the money, they're going to get the data, right? And it's almost like a rabbit hole. When somebody gets into one of these new, what they call immersive products, and Local is much like this, their travel stuff is like this, hotels is like this, it's very difficult once you go down this rabbit hole to Google for a consumer to ever leave. Additionally, they took what had been a very lame city guides program, sort of a Yelp wannabe, and as they were getting rid of these many products, they took all of the people who were willing to give their free time to Google, photographs in one area, reviews in another area, map edits in another area. They consolidated all of them into a single program where they then started gamifying that program to encourage people to donate more and more information to Google. And they started reaching out to those people to get attribute data, as well as very sophisticated, detailed data about all the locations in the world. Over the last 12 months, this program has grown to 50 million guides, right? Imagine 50 million people walking around the world giving you data at no cost. Photographs, reviews, attributes, driving direction fixes, map fixes, everything you need to keep a local product functioning in terms of almost real-time updating. They now have it, and they're getting it for free, and they're giving, they gamify it with, maybe a gigabyte of free storage. I mean, they give away nothing in return for these people's work. It's an incredible program, and even if only 10 million of these guides are active, it's a massive amount of data that they're getting in. And they also are able to judge these users as to their reliability and trust, right? So I've been a long-time contributor to Google. I'm one of the stupid people who gives Google a lot of data. And I was in a map maker, I was a regional lead, I did a lot of reviews, I did a lot of edits. And so now I am a level 7 local guide. And if as an agency you don't have local guides working for you, you should. You should get them trained and functioning, because with the trust that I've received, I can do a Google Maps edit and get almost instant approval on almost any edit. Right, and the edits I can't get approval on, I've teamed up with 3 or 4 other top contributors who are also strong local guides, and together we can push through almost any edit we need. So it's a great, if you don't have somebody internally to do this, you should. Another aspect of Google was this decision to start advertising in local. Once they made that decision, the ad expansion was massive and every place. The base level of the map, in Google Maps, in the 3-pack, in the 1-box, right? I mean, last week we started seeing ads in the business knowledge panel for that business, right? Any place there's a free space or not a free space on local, they're putting ads. They're monetizing every aspect of local. They also, unlike in the past, has implemented tremendous outreach to small businesses. If you go to Google these days and you are an owner of a listing and you search for your brand on Google, right on the front page of Google, they're giving you 3 calls to action to make a change to your business listing, to update it, to improve it. They're sending out emails to the point where every time they have a new product, and that's frequently, every time something happens in your account, every time once a month you get insights, I mean, they're literally spamming small businesses to get them back into the dashboard like we've never seen before. I mean, it's an incredible activity. I mean, I sit at home, I'll get, I manage maybe 10 accounts these days. I'll get 5 to 10 emails a day. And I have all of them turned on because I want to see what Google's sending. They're also have been successful at collecting and collating incredible attribute data, right? They know which businesses in the world have handicap access. They know which ones are LGBT friendly. They know which ones are child friendly. They have more detailed attribute data about almost every business in the world, and this effort has been pushed out not just to the local guides, it's been pushed out to the API, bulk, and now into the GMB. They're getting more and more of that. Odd hours, special hours, types of credit cards, etc. And in part of this was this dramatically increased focus on reviews. If you look at a brand page, this is a search for a client of mine, and you not only do we see review stars on her website, first-party reviews, we see third-party reviews. Google on the organic side gave extra ranking points to any directory that was using rich snippets. So they were more likely to show up on brand searches. And then over, obviously, the Google reviews, and on the right, reviews from the web. They're collating what they think are the three of the most popular ones and showing them again, right? So a tremendous emphasis on user-generated content around these businesses, particularly in reviews. In 2015 and 2016, once they started to get this sort of structural stuff out of the way, the back end fixed, all they separated from Google Plus, we started to see reasonable rates of development in the GMB, although mostly sort of product fixes and features, nothing in terms of a feature that would attract a small business. And we saw the rate of development, I was tracking it, literally double from one year to the next. And it had become clear that Google Local now had massive corporate support for multi-threaded development. So brings us to 2017 and the world in which we all exist, the duopoly of which David spoke, right? In which we are in the room with 2 very large elephants. And there's a saying in the United States that you have to be careful when you sleep with an elephant because if they roll over, you're in trouble. And I think that metaphor is very apt for 2017. But like I said, in terms of reasons for the small business to come back into the Google My Business, there were none, right? Businesses would go in, set it, and forget it. And there was no new products or features that would attract a business into the GMB. The only one between 2010 and 2017 was review monitoring, where they brought in their reviews and third-party reviews, and then they shortly thereafter got rid of third-party reviews. So the only feature was review monitoring of Google products and the ability to respond to reviews in that whole period of almost 7 years, right? Now, despite this lack of sort of business development, they not only retained but sort of developed and enforced their position as the market leader in local, right? This is a case study that I did in a small client where we looked at, for a 4-month period, all of the low funnel key performance indicators that were low funnel things, click to calls, requests for driving directions, form fills, and text messages that showed purchase intent from Facebook or wherever. We tabulated those across all the sources. We looked at Bing, we looked at Google, we looked at Facebook and Yelp, we looked at their website, we tracked all of that, right? And what we found was that 92% of all key performance indicators, low funnel key performance indicators, were coming from Google. Now, what was even more surprising though, was that the bulk of those, 3/4 of those key performance indicators of low funnel activity, were occurring on the front page of Google. Click to calls, driving directions, people were not coming to the website. Website traffic was generating the second most, but by far much less than was being generated directly on the front page of Google. So this is the Google that we're living with, where they want that click, they want that driving direction, and they don't want to send that user onto your website. So you can see that very clearly here. Now Google is a funny company, right? The owners grew up in post-World War II Jewish families. One of them is a Russian emigre who was sort of chose to leave Russia, but as a refusenik. I mean, they grew up under existential threats. This attitude was brought to the company when it was founded, and in their initial founding, they experienced the threat of Microsoft, right? I mean, when they were just getting going, Microsoft antitrust was happening, and if that had not gone the way it did, Google would not be the Google we know. Now, interestingly, the stick that Microsoft used on them, they have subsequently learned to use very well from the other end, but they still have retained this sense of existential threat around every corner. I mean, they view the world through a lens of that they're going to be irrelevant tomorrow. And this creates an incredibly competitive company. Now, there were and are some significant existential threats to them, right? I mean, by their focus on Google+, they missed a large portion of the mobile revolution. Facebook really leveraged their app to gain a huge mind share among small businesses. The developing countries skipped the web altogether. In India, they just went right to the mobile phone, no need for the web. Well, that's a huge threat to Google. If they can't see what these businesses do, when they do it, how they do it via the web, that's a real threat. And in the United States, in the shopping world, Amazon's cleaning their clock. So there are real threats to them. But in local, where they've maintained dominance, they're going to defend local at all costs. They are not going to give it up without a fight. They may someday lose, but they're not going to do that without an incredible battle. So they've thrown tremendous resources into this area. Blah, 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 blah. This is me. That was the last 10 minutes. Now, what's happening 2017? It's been a crazy ride since the first of the year. Most of you are not that familiar with AdWords Express, but it uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to create an incredible ad product that delivers calls directly to the business. And it takes a business less than 5 minutes to set up an ad. A business goes in, they pick a call. They say, they pick a goal. I want to be called, right? And what will happen is that when somebody calls, the ad will pre-roll with an announcement. This ad's coming to you from Google AdWords Express, and then the caller will come through. So it's a very visceral form of attribution. Calls come through, and the business is notified with every call. The second thing they do is they go in and they set targeting. Enter a couple of zip codes or draw a county, and you can target very precisely, as this person has done around the rich neighborhoods in Buffalo. She's a high-end jeweler again. So in a few minutes, she's able to target only those neighborhoods with incomes more than $90,000. She had to do that demographic research herself, but very quickly. Then Google suggested what category she might be interested in, gave her the ability to choose. Now, interestingly, Google automatically does negative keywords that don't work, and they allow you to go in later and reduce which words you're showing or suggest others. It also shows on both the network and on search, but it auto-adjusts over time. If a network ad isn't working, they'll switch automatically over to search. So over time, you'll see it change. And then finally, you add call tracking, right? So those 4 slides is what a small business now needs to do to set up a great ad at Google. Not only does it set up a great ad that calls you, but it's cheap. Now, there's another saying in the United States, getting a haircut. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, but essentially it means you're losing a lot of money on the deal. And this product has gotten so good, they know so much information about their customers. They're using the most advanced AI and machine learning. They have 0 marginal cost of production. And now with the GMB and the spam bringing customers in, they have 0 marginal cost of sales. And they can afford to sell these ads in highly competitive markets with a phone call for $1.50 an ad, or click, an action, right? I mean, incredibly low pricing that I find it very difficult to conceive how you can compete with that with AdWords, at least up to the $500 a month campaign. So that was, they just did a recent upgrade on that, and the first upgrade came out around the first of the year. The other major switch in the United States market is home service ads, these ads at the top, and what's called advanced verification. This sort of percolated along for about 2 years with very slow development, very slow market rollout. Advanced verification is where a business needs to be certified. Google sends in Pinkerton company to verify that there are no criminals working for them, and that they are who they say they are, that they have licenses, etc. And Google then actually guarantees these vendors that have been advanced verified, and will guarantee up to a $2,000 job if you get a quote through their system. So this is being, this is essentially, instead of dealing with spam algorithmically, which they learned they couldn't do, they decided to kick everybody out of the listings and deal with spam by charging $25 a lead. So all of a sudden they're competing with Home Advisor and all these other guys at a very low cost per quote. And while it's not in Europe yet, it has rolled rapidly over the last 3 months into, I think, 12 major US markets. They've refined the advanced verification. We anticipate it rolling worldwide here in the next 6 months, so it's coming. Now, interestingly, the last slide in my deck in 2014, I talked about Google having just bought this company called Appitas, which is a web builder that for restaurants that allowed a restaurant to create a 4 or 5 page site that integrated with OpenTable, integrated with billing, integrated with takeout orders electronically, and allowed the restaurant with a few digital assets to generate a really beautiful site in literally 20 minutes, right? Well, the owner of this company is the same product manager 3 years later that built Google Websites. Google Websites is a single page builder, a single page web builder that, with the assets that are in your GMB, literally will build a website in less than 5 minutes. And it's not a bad looking website. It's not as sophisticated as WordPress, but it's a website. It's a great entry level product. I've been tracking the existence of these websites since rollout in mid-June, right? So it's been out 4 months. The last time I checked was the 1st of October, and probably today they've produced 750,000 of these. They're averaging over 5,000 a day, right? Now that's scale. And what you see is about once a week you'll see a spike where all of a sudden 20,000 will be implemented, right? So clearly they're promoting it in some markets. We don't know where, but they're generating these pages at massive, enviable quantities. Now, I went and I looked at these websites. Where are they? Now, this product was designed to deal with one of these existential threats, which is that in India, for example, or Brazil, a lot of people don't use the web, and Google loses out all the data. So they're really focusing on developing countries. A lot of them are in India, a number of them are in Indonesia, but Europe is not far behind in terms of development. When you look where this breaks out, I think Italy has 12,000, Spain has 10,000, UK, Germany, and France each have about 10,000. Turkey has 18,000. I didn't include Turkey. I'm not sure if Turkey's in the EU yet or not. So I didn't include them in the 58,000 here, but they're in addition too. And then the United States, 39,000, right? So this, just because it's designed and targeted at developing businesses in developing countries, doesn't mean it isn't being used in your backyards. It is, broadly, widely, and totally self-serve at this point. So, I don't know how many that is, 3 so far in 2017. This is number 4. For the first time, Google is allowing businesses, maybe not the first time, they did this a little bit with Google+. They're allowing businesses to post directly to search results. Think about it. Google has protected the integrity of their search result page forever. They've never let anybody touch it. And starting in June 2017, every business in the world has the ability to post directly to the search result, to their knowledge panel, and they also show up in keyword searches in the local finder. So This is a very interesting product. This company, B&H Photo, many of you are familiar with them. They're sort of the leading big toys for big boys company in the United States. They sell all the advanced leading technologies, computer, audio, video, music. They use it as a tool to highlight the newest, most frequent product. The same jeweler I work with uses it for storytelling. She tells stories about her clients. She doesn't say, I sell engagement rings. She says, she tells the story from the man's perspective who came in and bought the ring, how fearful he was and how he finally gave her the ring in Central Park. She tells great stories. And then another good example is this Shoot Factory. They're a photography firm, and every week they have a theme for the shoots they've been doing that week, and they share parts of those shoots with the public. So I think, when you look at these types of posts that I think are successful, it's like any social media, right? You can't hammer somebody over the head with a 10% off too often. You can, though, link directly to your website. You can link to specific pages. You can create events that will stay up longer than a week. These posts only stay up a week. And so if you're heavily event driven, you can deal with that as well. And then that was June. July, they came out with their messaging product, which is sort of, like many things at Google, half-baked, but can project text messaging directly onto the Knowledge Panel for those types of businesses that need it. Plumbers, single, owner businesses that are in the field a lot, working off their phone. It's a great way to stay in touch. There's a great article that I reference in my bibliography of integrating it into a dental clinic that has a young demographic. Worked very well. And then finally, the lamest of the products that they've introduced is Google Q&A. It didn't come out of their business division, it came out of their consumer division. It's a crowdsourced sort of Quora for the Knowledge Panel, where consumers can go to every business's Knowledge Panel and ask a question, and other consumers or the business can answer it. And it's a potential nightmare for your business clients. It's a potential reputation nightmare. This is Advantage Rent-A-Car in Los Angeles. Why does your location run out of cars? Question. And the answer from a local guide, high authority, avoid this location at all costs. Who wants this on your Knowledge Panel, right? I mean, no business in the world wants this on the Knowledge Panel, but Google doesn't report these anyplace. If you want to know about them, you have to go onto Safari or Chrome or Google Maps on Android only and see if they're there, right? There's no corporate communication, they're not in the API. There's no way for you to learn about this happening on your business listing. Now, while it's a potential nightmare, like any crowdsourced data, it can be a dream come true, right? So again, same client, Barbara Oliver, I called her, I said, look, this is being released. You need to gather up get your staff together, figure out which questions you get on the phone the most frequently, phrase those questions from the point of view of your consumers, write them up, and answer them and post them. She did that. But she's also doing review management. So she posted a bunch of questions and answers. A week later, she sent some of her new clients out to leave her a Google review, and those people answered the questions better than she ever could have, right? This person, does she do custom design jewelry? Yes, she does, beautifully. This is something she couldn't say about herself, but she took this and led with it instead of being held hostage to it. So she pre-filled the content, she pre-filled the answers, she tried to do it from the consumer's point of view, she answered real questions that people had, and by getting out in front of it, is able to avoid some of these reputation issues. Now, I don't know if Advantage Car, which offers terrible service, is ever going to be able to avoid them totally, but these questions get upvoted, and the question that gets upvoted the most shows on your Knowledge Panel. So there's really critical that your clients start tracking this. And then finally, just last week, was it last week? 12th of October, they released version 4.0 of the API. In version 4.0 of the API, they introduced the ability, for example, to do more granular user management of notifications. So in other words, you can help your customers cut down on the Google spam. Yes. They allowed for non-binary attributes, things like types of credit cards. It's not just yes or no answers, it's Amex, Visa, etc., which was in bulk, now in the API. And most significantly, the ability to post directly to Google for up to 9 businesses via the API. So with the API, you can now offer small businesses with up to 9 locations the ability to post to their knowledge panel. And they are working on large multi-location product, but it's a much more complicated product. We don't know when it's coming out, but we know they're working on it. So we're looking at 7 new products or dramatically upgraded products in the last 9 months. That's one less than every 6 weeks, right? 5 weeks. An incredible burst. Now, you could criticize these products as non-original. You know, messaging copies Facebook, but the reality is Google's been thinking about this stuff for years. In the case of messaging, they've tested it at least 3 times previously on the knowledge panel. There just wasn't the utilization in mobile that would allow them to rationalize investing in it. So yeah, but when you're a monopolist too, you can be a copycat and get away with it, right? All they need to do is provide enough functionality to enough different business types to get them to come back into the Google My Business. Now, another reality of Google products is they're developed in very small groups, and typically these groups don't talk to each other. So, for example, Posts doesn't work with their website product, which it should, right? Their Q&A doesn't work with the GMB, which it should. But they also slowly, as a product is proven to be successful, some of these may get axed. Google is very ruthless. If it doesn't get traction in a reasonable period of time, they'll axe it, but many of these will make it through, and when they do, they'll slowly be integrated into the other products, much like Posts is moving from an SMB into API and on to enterprise. So, you know, when the giant stirs, this is like the sleeping elephant, very similar. Be careful. You never know when they don't even notice they're going to be crushing you. So how do you pick a path forward through this incredible pace of change directly impacting your small business customers? So I've laid out sort of some high-level thoughts. And, you know, AdWords Express is an incredible risk to the $500 AdWords campaign, right? If a business can go in and in less than 5 minutes create a campaign that works better than yours with better attribution, and then realizes that you've been charging too much for your campaign, you're in trouble, right? So either you need to move upstream in AdWords with attribution and A/B testing and much more sophistication, or in a product like this, you almost have to give it away as part of a low-end bundle and charge them a small monthly maintenance fee, put it on their credit card and say, how much do you want to spend? And we'll watch it for you for some small amount every month, right? But do not think you can compete with this. You can't, because they know everything there is to know. They have this incredible AI self-learning technology. They can produce an ad cheaper and better and more targeted than you will ever be able to using their other product. So point one, be aware that AdWords is at risk at that low campaign levels. The other is that if Google is becoming the place where users are taking these first steps to contact a business, then you need to rejigger your thinking about what benefits your business customers, right? And so my sort of short phrasing for this is Google as the new homepage. When you look at a brand search on a homepage, you can segment that page out, the top section being their website. They have first-party reviews on their website, which shows stars. The second section being third-party review sites. She's actively asking for reviews, getting reviews at these third-party sites. Major sites like Facebook and Yelp. And then less prominent sites, vertical sites, etc. She's asked for a few there. She sort of mixes them in. So over time, she's building this organic story that when you search on her, the story that's being told on this page is consistent and reinforces the fact that she does an excellent job. Photography is another one. Photographs are looked at very widely in Google My Business, and they're a huge sort of conversion optimization opportunity. Google reviews, posts, and then you can see over here the reviews from the web. Now notice they don't show Yelp reviews or TripAdvisor reviews on the right side. So it's an opportunity for you to get your first party reviews from your client's websites onto the Knowledge Panel. So this page, given that it's generating 70, or the Google search results in aggregate are generating 70% of your KPIs, if this page looks good, your chance of getting that conversion at Google goes up dramatically. Because of the development patterns, there's always these gaps in the products, right? For example, in messaging, you have to run it through the GMB, and you have to run it out to your cell phone as the default mode. You as value-added resellers could go in and integrate Google's messaging product with a desktop text program and add significant value to that product very easily, right? I, as a reputation company, looked at Google Q&A and said, this is a huge reputation problem. I'm taking the risk. We're building this report. We're going out and scraping Google every night and at an enterprise level, looking for questions, looking for answers, notifying businesses when we find them. And we're building this. We should have a beta next week, right? So we look to fill that hole. It's a strategy. It's a risky strategy, but one that you can all take. My thought on this is twofold, right? So let's say it cost me $5,000 or $10,000 to build it. One, it'll put me in a position of market leader in my market. Two, if they bring out an API for it, I can switch over to the API. Maybe I will have violated a few terms of service. Don't tell anybody. And if they discontinue the product, okay, I'm out the investment. But it puts me as a company at the forefront of consumers' minds because we're providing a necessary fill-in service to what Google is lacking. So what else can you do? I think there's tremendous value to be added. You're from Brazil? Or you're from Brazil? Okay. I think there's tremendous value sort of one step below David's model using Google's free products, right? Or in more sophisticated markets, dealing with those at level one that really don't have you're going to be claiming their business anyways, right? So why not give them a Google website with the exact same assets, the same photographs? You can build a website in less than 5 minutes. So if you're already claiming their business at Google, why not give them a website to go with it, right? And then, depending on where they are in this stack, you can then create additional value around messaging, for example, integrating with a desktop, or around posts. They can't post every week, most of them. Many of you have writing resources. If you go and you get 50 good photographs when you first sign up with the client, you have enough photographs to do posts for a year. You write 100 words a week and you bill them for that. Photos, a huge conversion opportunity. Likewise, you send your salesman in with a good iPhone, takes 50 or 60 or 100 photos, you put it through Photoshop, you've got great assets for a year. And with this information, Google will start ranking that business, right? It's enough for Google to get a sense that that business has a heartbeat. With posts, you can get relevance. With messaging, you can get activity. And with photographs, you can get traction on the Knowledge Panel. Google will start ranking you with this little of information, which costs you virtually nothing to create and creates value. And then you can layer on top of this a $100 a month Google AdWords Express program and charge them, again, $10 or $20 a month to manage it. So you can generate a package here that in the United States I think would sell for $300 a month as a great entry-level package, a way to get started. So one way is to leverage Google's free products. Another is to leverage their API. It's clear that their API, they're committed to it. They've done TikTok development virtually every 6 months. They're up to version 4. In conversations here, there's some additional stuff in the works. And there's information that you can extract to bring into your own dashboards, or you can use to enhance your clients very easily. Attributes is available. You can now post for your small businesses from the API, so in your own dashboard you can post. And they're soon going to be adding video capability to the API. They renamed photos to media. You can now upload a video on Maps, so they're going to be adding video here shortly. So there's all sorts of, again, step-ups that you could be providing off that base package. And then, as David pointed out, and which I believe firmly, you need to be heading into the service area where Google isn't, right? Google controls a lot of the top of the funnel. Facebook controls the customer relations, post-sale stuff, but they're not everywhere. So David, I think in a brilliant strategic move, my compliments to the chef, moved into automated emails for professionals, an area that's underserved, but which you guys can leverage at very low cost, but high margins. I think reputation is one of the biggest areas. Small businesses have trouble with reputation. They have trouble responding to complaints. They have trouble assessing customer satisfaction. They have trouble, getting feedback from customers and posting it on their website. They have trouble asking for reviews. They have trouble monitoring reviews. They have trouble monitoring Q&A. This is some research I did. I do it every couple years. So I went and I asked consumers in 4 or 5 countries, and the articles are at Get 5 Stars, how often will you take the time to leave an online review for a local business, was actually the phrasing I used, right? And in the most recent one, blue is Germany today, right? So in Germany, 52% said they would never take the time to leave a review. 30% said occasionally, and 8 or 9% said frequently. That was Germany. In the United States, in 2017, this number is 33% say never. And the bulk of it's made up with frequently. Occasionally is about the same. So, and here you're looking at United States in 2014, right? So the United States in 2014, 3 years ago, is where Germany is today in terms of consumers' willingness to leave a review. Now, England is halfway between Germany and the United States. Interestingly, they're about 40% in terms of people who say never. And I haven't tracked Germany and England over time to see what the trends are. But the trend in the United States is clearly moving from 50%, 55% down to 32% are never willing to leave reviews. So reviews are now being broadly accepted in the United States by almost everybody. And I believe that time is nigh for Europe as well. Now, in this same case study I did around KPIs, we went into this business for that quarter and surveyed every new customer that they closed during that period, every new customer, and we asked them what was it that led you to the company, right? So, sorry to tell you, she had a yellow page print ad. It was 2% of her closes were due to the yellow page, right? It was mostly older folks getting really cheap jewelry repairs. $1,500 that she spent on the quarter was not rewarded at all. The radio ad was 4%. Interestingly, that was drive time, and it attracted middle-aged men, sort of for last-minute Christmas gifts, who said, whoops, I forgot to buy that gift. They drove in and dropped, 20 grand. She was good with the 4% on radio. Billboards, again, nothing. So of the 140 sales in her company, spending somewhere in the order of $15,000 in advertising, she got 9% of her total sales from that, right? She's spending about $1,500 a month on SEO. She's spending, or $1,500 a quarter on SEO, I'm sorry, $500 a month, $1,500 a quarter, and she's spending $90 a month on reputation, right? So it's about $1,600, $90 a quarter. $1,600 a quarter she's spending on her digital spend, right? Now, 33% were direct word of mouth, and 58% said to her, I read reviews on the internet. And she said, well, where on the internet did you read them? And they said, I don't know, on the internet, right? And so when you look at this and compare it to our KPIs, we know that 90% of these significant actions were occurring due to Google. Users were going to Google and probably making a decision right then and there, not moving on, reading reviews, looking at photographs, and then making a decision. So clearly, if your business is, even if this is, okay, it's a case study, it may not apply to every business in the world, and it may not apply in every category, but I think it's broadly true that 70% of the businesses going to your businesses are either word of mouth online with reviews or word of mouth offline. And only 9 or 10% is due to advertising. If that is the reality, then to help your businesses, you need to stop thinking about advertising and thinking about marketing, right? Helping businesses be better with reputation, because that's what word of mouth is about, right? And so what we did was we are pushing NPS down to the store level. We think NPS is great too. When we push it down to the store level, we give them the ability to assess customer satisfaction. We give them the ability to segment people. We take first-party reviews, push them out to the website for content and SEO purposes. We then send happy users onto the review sites to leave reviews, and we all do that automatically with just an email. We have agencies running with this product, marking it up 10, 15 times. So we think reputation is really a service that both benefits you and benefits the customer. I did not know that we were going to have dinner the other night at the aquarium, although I did feel a little guilty about eating algae and tuna at the aquarium. This is the reality that we exist in, right? I mean, Google is sometimes unintentionally brutal, and we are left with the scraps. But in this chaos is tremendous opportunity. And I think by mixing and matching this, by doing what David said, and bringing value to the small business with an ongoing retainer of some sort that provides significant leads, gets their phones to ring, you will then find success partially leveraging Google and always being cautious to be developing alternative income streams that protect you when this beast all of a sudden turns on you, which it will. So slides are here, as is a complete bibliography of articles for almost every slide in the deck. So if you want to do your own, you want to look up when these things happened, my ideas around them, complete bibliography is there. So with that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mike. I think there was an awesome, lots of information from the past, but as well from the current situation. And so, do we have questions on these topics?
I'll take this. Oh, you can run that side.
I can
You
go.
can run.
It's my exercise in the morning.
So, Mike, your take on AdWords Express. Having spent many years in paid search business, the general consensus that we got back either from resellers who leveraged it or SMBs was that it wasn't great. That it was
Right, it was a turkey for many years. But
so curious as to see when you saw that change in
January. They called me in and did it. I met with the engineers and they showed me, and I then tried it.
Yeah.
And we saw significant success at very low cost per click with very targeted ads. And the most impressive thing to me was this pre-roll on the voice. So there was this guttural sense in the business that something was happening. It's like the guy from Brazil said, the call was happening.
Yeah.
And they knew that and they felt it, and Google was just doing that as part of the project. So starting in January with development, and then they've continued throughout the year to improve this product. So last week or the week before, they added better call tracking, and they also added the ability to automatically modify a mobile site with calls to action at the top of the site. So if the site does not have its own calls to action, they will put them there for the business automatically.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that feature. So it's gotten good.
Gotcha. And then on the websites product, is that coming with a domain? Do they?
You can buy a domain extra. Right now it's at business.site.
Yeah.
But so it's your name.business.site. But when you buy it, they give you an option to purchase a domain, or you can redirect a domain.
And this is unique from the other kind of Google domains where you'd go in and build the site with Wix, Weebly, or what have you.
That's right. Totally. Well, the domain purchase is probably through the same back end, but
Right, but the websites are.
But the website's through GMB.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you, Mike, for this great perspective on Google. I wanted to ask you a question about the future, and especially
the nice thing about the future is I can say anything, and you can't prove me wrong.
No, but I'm sure you have some ideas around two things that are linked, I think. How transactional is going to enter more and more in the Google local ecosystem, and how conversational is going to modify. So namely Google Home, Google Assistant, is going to modify the interaction to local and certainly make Google Home even a more significant entry point for those who need it.
So transactions, I think, we had this discussion last night about where's Google going to go next in terms of monetization, right? They have all these free products. Are they going to monetize it? Are they going to monetize the API? My belief is they're not going to monetize the currently free products, that they're going to use this incredible information they have about the business to implement wallet and delivery. If you go back and you look at the original Business Builder plan, it included wallet and delivery. And that was from 2010. They had aspirations of pushing that out to local, and I think that you will see that play out as their primary means of further monetization. I mean, obviously they're going to further monetize this. Now they're currently playing with various third-party relationships for transactional. So, you know, they're doing Uber and Cabify and a number. They're doing spas for scheduling. So they're currently doing that. That program though wasn't profitable for them, so they basically opened it up so that any business can now put their link in. But clearly they aspire to transactional activity on Google, and I believe that's where they're going to monetize. As to voice, if you know, David is a big supporter of voice. I am
something to be aware of.
Aware of, right. The problem is the time frame, right? As somebody pointed out yesterday, we underestimate the current impact or overestimate the current impact and underestimate the future impact. I mean, to me, voice is a 5-year, 6-year project. I think that even though people don't give Apple credit, the reality is that when you look at who's using voice, it's Apple users, which is a huge impediment to Google's success in that place, as is Amazon, right? So it's not an open field to them. If Google does succeed, it's going to dramatically change the search results because there's only one answer, but it's likely to be transactional. We're seeing that now with their relationship with Target and Walmart and all those folks. So it is very likely to be brand driven, which makes this knowledge panel all the more critical because that's the answer they're going to give, and likely that's where they're going to extract the transactional information from for voice. So I see them related, but I would not be one to bet when that's going to happen. David might bet on it, but I never would. Do we have a bet?
Well, I don't think we have a bet.
Oh.
So Mary Meeker, her annual, that 2020 and
Right.
21, where voice becomes the dominant
Comscore says
No,
2020 will be 50%, I think.
Right.
That's when it will overtake, let's say, typed in or other sources of search. So when voice will take over, voice search will take over the majority, that will be 2020 plus something.
Although interestingly, one of the
That's
heaviest
US. That's
users,
US.
one of the heaviest user demographics in the United States is people over 65 of voice, right? Because it's just quicker, easier than thumbing it, right? I'm a big fan of voice, even though I can thumb it. I still use voice all the time. So there are some analysts, though, like Benedict Evans, who thinks that that the image sensor is going to be the core of our interactions because there's so much more information and ability to process it transparently on the back end than there is on voice. But you know, I'm not a futurist. I sort of deal with today. I sort of figure, look, this is the crap we've been dealt. We need to make money with it, right?
Okay. One more.
Sorry, that leads me to one question about what exists today. How successful is Google Express?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Do you, David? I mean, it's in
Okay,
limited
so
markets. You know, the way Google works is they bring out a product and they test it and test it and test it and test it. Now, and the one way you can see their commitment is how long they test it for. And Express has been testing for a long time, which means they don't have the right formula, but they're committed to it. That would be my answer. Strong commitment, not yet working.
One more.
Mike,
You sound a little groggy. What time did you get home last night, son?
it was your fault.
Not my fault. I'm chipper.
That bar has a way of sucking time out of everyone's lives upstairs, right? So
logos on Google Maps. We've seen it rolled out in the States. In South Africa, it hasn't yet arrived. Do you know anything about the rollout plan globally, and whether it's going to be in GMB or whether it's going to be a kind of an AdWords product?
Right now, it's a large enterprise test. In other words, they go to McDonald's, and are selling it directly to them through AdWords. I don't know what their plans are for it. Sorry to say. I'm not sure how effective it is. I mean, I find them kind of annoying myself, but.
So a couple of us, like Trevor, have been selling logos on maps for years, so we were quite excited to see. And they never actually appeared, so we were very excited when Google were going to do it,
well.
but it still hasn't arrived. So.
All right.
Cool. And just maybe secondly, in terms of rollout into different territories, is there kind of a set rollout plan in terms of markets? How does it work?
Google has divided the world up into developed and developing, and as the developing markets, typically, if it's a product like websites, which is a developing market product, right, they will roll it out in Brazil, India, and the United States so they can keep a handle on it, right, initially. On the other hand, if it's something like Post or even Q&A, which they think has a strong worldwide value in terms of getting data to them, they'll roll it out worldwide, which means that they think it's good enough for worldwide rollout. So it just depends on who they're targeting. But if you notice, if you look at these product targets, right, posts, messaging, Q&A, the API, they all target different market segments, and they're bringing different market segments into the fold. And I think their goal is to bring them into the fold and then make sure that they all sell AdWords.
Yeah, that's obviously the end goal, the monetization. Great. Thanks, Mike. We look forward to seeing you in South Africa.
I think I'm being yanked for the clock.
All right. I have one last question, because you mentioned that one of your advice was look into the social posts and try to engage with your customers. Who is doing that? Writing social posts on behalf of their customers already? What results do you get? Like in terms of the KPIs, like how many views you get and how many click on it? Yeah. It's yeah. I would like to see some.
And just as a note, we've done some early testing, and Google is reading posts for relevance. And so on long tail searches, it improves visibility.
I think so too, yes. Yeah. Right, so thanks so much, Mike Blumenthal. I hope it's not going to be last 3.5 years until we meet him again.